All right, Stephanie.
All right. Hello, good morning, everyone. As you can see on your screen, just go ahead and please sign into the chat with your full name and your institution. I want to welcome you today to today's webinar, Spotlight on AI, Beat the Bot, showing students they can outperform LLMs. My name is Stephanie Vehrs. I am the Director of Online Learning at the College of Southern Maryland, and I will be your moderator for today. But let me go ahead and introduce you to our presenter. Dr. Naomi Gades is an assistant professor of English at Frostburg State University. She has developed pedagogy that integrates LLM evaluation for first-year writing and for an advanced course in digital rhetoric. So go ahead, Naomi.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I am indeed here with you from Frostburg State University out in the mountains out west. And hopefully you can see my screen right now if you are joining us. And I will be using a Menti. There'll be a link later that'll be on the Menti. So if you want to follow along with the slides and view them on your own screen, you can go to www.menti.com and the code 2520838. I believe Stephanie might drop that in the chat for us so that we can all have it after I move away from this slide. But a fun way to interact with my students. Oh, hey, someone got a like. I always tell my students I get a little endorphin hit whenever someone hits the like button. You could do polls with Menti. You can do different in-class quizzing. I'm not going to put you through that today, but I did want to show you this tool that I enjoy using in my classes. All right. The Beat the Bot curriculum that I'm presenting on today really started in spring semester 2023. So I've been doing it for a couple of years. And it came out of a couple of problems that I was having. I'm an English 101 specialist here at Frostburg State University. That's really what I do, is freshman composition. And I wanted students to have more time to practice in class with their writing, to practice skills. I wanted them to be able to understand what was happening with LLMs. If you remember, in the end of the fall 2022 semesters, when these platforms became available to students, it was the first time we really started seeing students using them in their writing, and they weren't using them in an educated, responsible way. And then I wanted to have more examples for students to look at, and I wanted more social interaction. I don't know if you had this experience with students who came out of COVID into your college classrooms, but I wanted them to be able to talk to each other and interact with each other, and I wanted to foster that. So when I have these kind of problems in my class, my next step is to filter them through what are the best practices for teaching that I know in my field. And so if I want them to do more practice, I'm going to have to give them active learning opportunities. If I want to have examples, I'm going to need to use those in guided practice. And if I want to do social learning, I'm going to put that through group work, because I know that the neuroscience of learning shows that the more of your brain that you have active, the more likely you are to hang on to the connections that your neurons make during class. And when you're learning socially, you are engaging a lot more of your brain than when you're learning on your own. And so I really wanted to emphasize that as well. And I think that's true for my online classes also, since I know this is the online higher education consortium. Trying to get students to interact meaningfully with each other is really, really helpful in helping them retain information. So I put that together with what I would call my solutions in the curriculum. I moved to a flipped class format, and that's very analogous to what would happen in an online situation, right? My content, my lectures, what I'm doing with you right now is all delivered in videos through a system that we have at Frostburg called VidGrid. It has embedded quiz questions, and their quiz scores inside the video transfer directly to our LMS to Canvas. I knew I wanted to have weekly AI instruction, so every week we're going to hit on some aspect of AI writing. I knew that to have examples, I could have them look at professional examples. I could pull student examples from our Journal of First Year Writing here at Frostburg State University, so that students never have to feel bad in my class like I'm going to pull their work without them knowing, as students who've already agreed to have their work be published. And for my bad examples, to have examples from an LLM. And if I wanted to foster social interaction and I wanted to use group work, I decided to do that in my class through pair writing. And that's the pedagogy that I'm really going to show you today. So what does this look like? Oh, that's my data slide. I have and I'll take you to a live Padlet in a second. But this is a Padlet is a tool. It's like an online discussion board, you know, kind of bulletin board type space where students can contribute. And where we start each class is with a narrative. And so I asked ChatGPT to write a narrative for us. And we discussed it in class. We talked about its shortcomings, and we're going to do that in detail ourselves just in a second. But to give you an overview, then I asked students to write a better narrative. And what you are seeing here in the orange and the black is student work from a writing session with pairs in their groups, where we had an exposition group, inciting event, rising action, all the different steps of the plot. And then at the end, I asked them to vote on which of their peers' work they thought was best in each category. And the ones that are orange here are the ones that got highlighted as our winners. And that became our class narrative. So whenever we wanted to practice things with narrative, we could go back to our class narrative and talk about, okay, what's working here? And then what I have in the red and the black here is how they revised. So some group got assigned to revise our exposition. Two groups got assigned to revise the inciting events after we had talked about description, after we talked about engaging audiences. And once again, we had a little bit of a competition. Students have a lot of fun with this. They really get into it. And the ones that are in red are the ones that did the best with that. And I've blurred it all out. Very conscientious about sharing student work, although I did have permission from this class to share their work. In presentations like this, I blurred it out for you but I wanted you to see how much writing they are doing in these little sessions and how much they get into it. And there's one here in the rising action, they're throwing their neighbor into the back of a pickup truck like a sack of potatoes or something. A really fun, engaging description. And so that's the competitive part of this pedagogy where I kind of get them working together. But we also do pair writing that is just, can you do the skills? So we have, for our next assignment after the narrative, we do this, I call it a research journal, but it's kind of like an annotated bibliography. And that unit starts with reading research articles, right? So if you're in a field that's not first year composition, you probably have students engaging with readings. And I asked ChatGPT to summarize the article that we had gone through really carefully in class. They read it aloud to each other. They went through a guided reading worksheet. And we discussed, okay, what is wrong with this summary? It's not following our summary guidelines that we had in class. It's got some things incorrect, right? And then I had them write in their pair groups better summaries, right? How would you do a summary that's better than what ChatGPT produced? And they did. And in this case, instead of having them compete and vote against each other, I do what I call green lighting. And so I greenlit the ones that did an especially good job of one of the aspects of summary writing we had talked about in class. And I, gave those groups a little bit of positive feedback, without making everyone else feel bad, but pointing out what they had done well. And that green lighting is what I did with other research paragraphs. You can see it up here, and again, up at the top. Another format I've used for this is what I call the March Madness format. We're writing introductions that appeal to certain audiences, and the winning ones for politicians or the winning ones for people or insurance companies or healthcare workers, right, moved into our final four bracket here and competed against each other. Also a fun little strategy. And then it really started with the narrative, and then the research paragraphs. I added the summary section a semester later. And then I realized that we could do the same thing with citation engines. I don't know if you have students who overly rely on citation engines like I do, but we did a beat the bot battle with citation engines, and I gave them two sources, and I assigned each group to a different citation machine. And what you see here is a table of our results. And the ones in red are the ones that we identified that had significant problems. The one in orange here was the best of that group, and the one in green was actually correct, just to show students, which of these are the most reliable, but also that you always are going to have to go back and check. After that, Final unit in our English 101 is a media unit where they take their ideas and they transfer them to a different audience. And that often involves visuals or videos, podcasts, all different cartoons, all different kinds of things that they might choose. So I turned to AI image generators. This class had chosen Santa Fe, and for reasons that you'll understand in a second, as their rural location. Unlike me, none of them had lived in Santa Fe. They didn't know that Santa Fe is actually not that rural, but that's what they chose. And I asked for AI image generation for two, poster ideas for healthcare access in Santa Fe. And so you can see this, what students identified as a very Stalinist attempt at a propaganda poster. And we talked about, what had happened there. And then my personal favorite, and I think the favorite of many students, the AI having trouble distinguishing between Santa and Santa Fe. We talked about, why that happens with image generation. And then to beat the bot in this, because they can't produce a visual like that, in the span of a class or in the span of one module page you might expect in an online course, I asked them to go out and find sources on this theme, examples of something that you might want to do. So we had people who wanted to do posters. We had people who wanted to do cartoons. We had people who wanted to do infographics or a TikTok, right? And then I asked them just, what is the audience for this? How is it doing better than what the bot did, what it produced? So there's all the different ways that you can encourage students to create output that is better than they receive, to critically evaluate what comes out of these LLMs, and to really think about if they're going to use those tools, what to do with them. And to show you that this works and how it works, I actually ran a research study, an IRB approved research study in my English 101 classes last semester. And it included a quantitative section with these Likert scales just on these questions. I'm confident in using AI tools responsibly and ethically was the first one. And this first bar is showing the scores before on a scale of strongly disagree would be on the left, and in the orange to strongly agree, right? And you can see the students who shifted on the agree side from these two, 23.5, 29.4, to an overwhelming amount after this class indicated that they felt that they could use these tools ethically and responsibly. And that's not because we had lectures on the ethical and responsible use of AI tools. And it's not because I made them read articles about this. It's because what we did was this consistent engagement with AI tools in class, like I said, every week, just figuring out what's going on and building that into my course pedagogy. A similar shift, and I understand the strengths and weaknesses of these AI tools to be stronger, that they felt more knowledgeable. And then these two here, will they use it for their assignments? And you see a shift towards the strongly disagree about using it or trusting it. And there's a little bit of a confounding variable here, I think, that affected the results in this section. We had our library session came in, and in a lot of the qualitative comments students mentioned, I might use it to help me find keywords for different searches, like the librarian showed us how to. And so that's what's coming in there. But I think students definitely moved negatively on whether or not they were going to trust AI to do the writing for them in their assignments. So I would consider that to be a very successful outcome of what we in our curriculum world might call a hidden objective, not something that I was outright having students test on and quiz on, but something that was just persistently available in our class. And so, see if there's any questions. Stephanie hasn't piped up, and I don't see the chat when I'm sharing. So as long as there's no questions, Stephanie.
You're all set. You're clear.
All right. I would like you to have this experience of beating the bot, to have you do what my students are doing in class. If you're following along on the Mentimeter, you will see this link in front of you, and you can right-click on it to open it in a new tab. Otherwise, there is a link that I think we can drop into the chat. And I'm going to read through a narrative with you. And then I'm going to ask you to do the activity that I ask my students to do, which is to discuss your assigned plot section, to work in a breakout room with someone else, to write a better version of what you got assigned, and to post that to our Padlet that you should navigate over to, and then we'll rate them. Those instructions again on the Padlet. So if you just join me over there, here we are. And if you scroll down, you will see this ChatGPT narrative. And this is what I show my classes. It's from ChatGPT 3.5. I will be very transparent about that. But it demonstrates what happens. And what I've taught them so far about AI when I show them this is really simple. I just said, we can be an AI right now. Let's all write a fairy tale as an AI. And I say, so what's the most likely word, statistically most likely word to be the first word in a fairy tale? And I get this chorus of once, right? And what's the next word? Upon. So they know that it's procedurally, generated word by word like that. And then I show them this, and I'm going to dramatically interpret for you because I am an English teacher after all. Just the first maybe half of it. And what I'd like you to think about while I'm doing that is what has gone wrong with this as a story, all right? So I live in a small town located in the rural area. Our community faces many challenges, but one of the most pressing issues is the lack of access to healthcare. The nearest hospital is over an hour's drive away, and many residents do not have the means to travel that far for medical treatment. One day, my neighbor, an elderly lady, fell ill and was unable to get to the hospital. She was in critical condition and needed immediate medical attention. I knew if she did not get help soon, she could die. This incident made me realize our community desperately needed a healthcare solution. Determined to help my neighbor and other residents in the same situation, I quickly rallied the community and organized a meeting to discuss the healthcare crisis. Okay, and they go on, they're brainstorming, they're contacting town hall, right? They're doing months of advocacy. That's what's happening in that second paragraph. So if you have like the furrowed brows right now, or you were chuckling a little bit, you have gotten as far as my students need to get when I ask them what's wrong with this. I get a couple of like, well, it's a small town, it's really vague, the prose is robotic, it's not very interesting. But eventually, we get to what I call in my classes the little old lady problem, which is your neighbor is in critical condition and she is about to die. You do not go try to call the mayor to organize a community meeting, right? What is it that you should be doing? You should be getting her help. You are waving in Trooper 5 with a helicopter. You are calling the ambulance. You are, like my one class, throwing her in the back of your pickup truck like a sack of potatoes. Whatever it is that you are doing, you are trying to make sure that she gets the help that she needs to get to. And so I talk to my students, why has this happened? And I think, and we can't know, these systems are black boxes, but I think that these systems are trained on a lot of college application essays. I asked them, like, what is a piece of writing that you might have done recently that talks about you and your community and things that you've done to solve problems in your community? Aha, the college application essay, right? And that's what this is. It's not a narrative, even though I asked it to write a narrative. And so if you scroll down, you will see the activity instructions on the Padlet. And I'm going to ask you in your breakout rooms to write a section of the narrative better than ChatGPT did. And I have section assignments below. I'm going to ask you to discuss. I'll give you about 10 minutes to discuss and write. And to compose in Padlet, there's a big plus sign down in the corner. And you just click on it. And you would put your subject, what you get assigned, like the rising action, and in the title. And then you're like, I took her legs and my friend took her arms and we got her into the car, something, whatever it is that you want to write for the rising action. And if it's been a while since you've been in an English class to talk about a plot arc, I have notes for you here. So if you are team exposition, you are giving us a setting. When are we? Where are we? What kind of day is it? Right? If you are team inciting event, you discover your neighbor in distress. If you're team rising action, you need to get your neighbor to help. If you are team climax, well, what happens to your neighbor at the tensest moment? You're in a medical drama. What's happening, right? The doctor comes out of the doors from the OR and comes to tell you something. You get to decide. It's 50-50 for my classes if the old lady makes it or not. That's how it goes about. We have team falling action, which is like your reaction to that news, your neighbor's recovery, or her not recovery, depending on what you think might happen in the climax section. And then the denouement, any last bits of fallout, you know, like she's still out feeding the kittens, or we're planning her funeral, whatever it is, extra information that's good to know. It is my understanding that you will get assigned to a Zoom breakout room, and you should watch as you get assigned what number room you are in, so that you can follow the instructions. The number that of Zoom room that you are in should determine what section you get assigned. If that doesn't happen, then I suggest that you choose an inciting event, a rising action, or a climax, because those are the absolutely most fun to write, and you can still get an idea of what's going on with this activity. Do we have questions, as I would ask my students, about what I'm asking you to do right now? Okay, and if you get stuck in a Zoom room by yourself, and so the other person can't participate, then you know what to do. You're just going to have to write the thing. Okay, so Ron, if you would please send my participants here out into their breakout rooms. This is looking good, Stephanie. It's a chance to publish. Please go ahead and publish as far as you and your group got. And then that'll appear for me down here. I have an inciting event and what looks like maybe an exposition. Oh, a rising action. Very good. Thank goodness I charged my Tesla last night. Vroom, vroom.
The Bertha has fallen and she can't get up is an inciting event.
Okay, so we have competing inciting events. Fabulous. All right, so in my classes, I am the moderator, and I can approve these, and I usually don't approve them until I think everyone has contributed, so they don't steal ideas from each other or get intimidated by what other groups have written. And so what I'd like you to do right now is to vote. We have competing inciting events, and you can vote on 1 star for the one that you like less, and 5 stars for the one you like more. And so you just press the rate button down at the bottom, and then you can rate and give stars to that. So then we can decide which of our inciting events Bertha or Helen is going to move forward. We've got another rising action we can vote on. And a climax. I'm in Swanton, Maryland. And an exposition. Look at that, a full story. You could also then vote on our rising action, since we have competing rising actions.
Where is that rate? I saw it and then I don't see it.
You press the rate button here, and open up the rate box. And I have my students do the ranked choice, the 5 and the 1, so that I know when everyone's voted and seen all the things to vote on. Pauline, another name.
Gosh.
I'll give you a few more minutes to read through and rate the work of your classmates here. I love Team Climax. She reminded me of my own grandmother, so I couldn't bear to leave her behind, pulling at our heartstrings on a Wednesday morning. Team Climax. And it is going to be a close race here between inciting events. And thank you, Team Rising Action, for giving our star here a last name, Mrs. Smith. Here's where it's awkward in online learning spaces, right? You don't know if everyone's done or not. But I will go ahead and mark what look to be, well, our obvious winners in the single category. And it looks like Helen is the winner for our inciting event. And Tesla here is our winner for Rising Action. So if you have read through all of these, you'll see that our story is a little silly, but it does have a plot. And I gave you the cheats, right? Because I haven't taught you my lesson on plot parts yet. And we haven't looked at examples and looked at different plot parts and examples, right? So I gave you the cheat code of what to do here. But when students are doing this, they are actually practicing those skills and remembering those skills from previous instruction. And so we wrote a story that actually follows a plot that is better than the one that ChatGPT put out. So that's kind of the outperforming. Are we always going to be able to outperform ChatGPT? Maybe not. But in this instance, we do. And it gives students a lot of agency and empowerment to allow them that opportunity. So that is how this beat the bot kind of thing works in a digital space. If you are teaching online, I could definitely see this as something that you might do as part of a module page, right? And you assign people to team up in groups, and on Canvas you can assign groups to go and put these things. And then I don't know if you saw, but I can approve as the moderator. So I could be like, have them done by Thursday. And then as a moderator, I could approve everyone's on Thursday so they could all see each other's work and vote on it and look at it that way. I do want to show you, and I'm going to go back to my Mentimeter, how this looks like in my classes as a unit. And because I teach a flipped class, so I said all my instruction happens in videos. So this would be the structure for like an online module. This is also the structure that I would have for my Canvas courses. I do all my in-person classes have elaborate Canvas setups as well, with a page for each day. And so by the way, my video is getting laggy for me, so I don't know if it's laggy for anyone else. Are we doing okay still, Stephanie?
You're lagging on my end too a bit.
Okay.
But your sound is coming through clear.
Okay, it might be that we have a lot of cameras on the Zoom, so that could be part of it, but it could just be we're out here in Frostburg. So I would have a video, send them home with a video about this is what plot looks like, right? And these are the plot points, and this isn't a plot arc. With quiz questions in it, come prepared to class to think about that. On Monday, we would look at professional and student examples of, let's mark out where are we moving from exposition to inciting event? Where is the climax? How much time do writers spend on each part of that piece? Then we would send them home with a brainstorming assignment. If you're doing something like writing a summary, right, you'd be looking at professional examples or student examples of a great summary. Go home with a plan for what you want to write about, in this case, the story, or a plan for how you're going to outline that paragraph that you want to write about. I have that homework set early in the module or early in the week so that I have time to give them feedback on it by the time that they have to get to doing it themselves. So on Wednesday or on like my next module page, I would do the activity that we just did in class. Let's critique the AI example, let's evaluate it, and let's do better than that in a pair practice social setting in class. Wednesday, I might send them home, or in the next module page, I might send them home with a reinforcing video. Let's talk about description in narrative, or let's talk about how to make sure that your narrative is coherent. What are the things you need to mention right away? By the time they come to class on Friday, or by the time they hit that last module page for your week, they are ready to write independently. We've done it together as a group. They have a plan that I've looked at and given them feedback on, right? And now they have the confidence to be able to go and do it themselves and know that if they are going to use AI for the assignment, there's a chance that it's really not going to work out well for them, right? By having that instruction that we've had before. So that is the mini unit that I would have here for my English 101 classes, but I can envision it happening in a lot of different places where you're having students write code, where you're having students engage with any kind of reading material and having a reading response, anything like that, where you can show them the deficiencies of the AI model and have them work together to use their own minds to do something better or different. And that ends my first section of content, Stephanie. So I will ask again if anyone has questions about these activities or this pedagogical model.
The chat is still clear.
Chat is still clear. Okay. In that case, then I will have time to show you a little bit about the LLM unit that I designed for.
Naomi, sorry to interrupt. I have a chat that came directly to me.
I would love to have a direct chat.
Okay, it says, what is the time dedicated to the mini unit hours? From Bill Haley.
Okay, so this is for a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, 50 minutes in class. So where you see the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the homework things are just the things that are assigned for them to go. I try to keep the videos to 15 minutes or less. That's kind of best practice for online videos. Most of them are a little bit shorter, with the instruction that students are supposed to take notes on them, and that any class period may start with a quiz on the video material that they can use their notes for. And we talk about practicing that in class. Thank you for that question. If this were in an online environment, I would see this as 1 week worth of material is what I'd want to get out of this. They would leave that 1 week with a rough draft of their story. No other questions?
Nope, you were good.
All right. So then very briefly, I cannot see the top of my screen because that's where the Zoom stuff is. So that's why I'm moving my windows around here to try to get to this one. My LLM presentation here. Yes, here we go. All right. I was asked to teach an upper level tech fluency course. So I also developed a teaching unit on LLMs that I will show you very quickly right now. And this is a tech fluency course here. Everyone has to take like a do you know how to use the basics of technology classes for mixed majors. And this was the middle unit of 3 units. The first one, we created a digital edition of Mrs. Dalloway in XML. And the last one is about HTML and design. So this was the middle. And as you know, I'm always thinking about pedagogy and objectives and those kinds of things. And very quickly, I wanted them to be able to understand what AI were doing. I wanted them to be evaluate AI and want to be able to synthesize by giving us a prompt guide for their AIs. So this is what my unit looked like in Canvas. I had 2 weeks dedicated to understanding what how AI works and what it can do. And then we spent a week creating a rubric for assessment, norming our responses to that rubric for assessment, and assessing AI output, right, as a class. Then they spent a week on their own evaluating AIs with their own prompts and their own standards and their own rubrics that they developed, right? And then at the end of this unit, they wrote a manual how to best prompt the LLM that you got assigned for the output that you were measuring its abilities to do, and what the different prompts, the different iterations of the prompts that you tried, and what the results were for the rubrics and those kinds of things. To understand I assigned 2 readings, and I'm not going to take you through perusal right now because we spent plenty of time on the English 101 pedagogy. But these two, ChatGPT is bullshit. In rhetorical field, bullshit is a technical term about different kinds of lying. So it's a little bit transgressive for students, but it's an open access article, has an excellent overview of how these systems work and what if they don't have a sense of morality, is there any kind of truth telling going on, or is it all just kind of like this kind of lying if it doesn't have intentionality? And then Stephen Wolfram's, I assigned my English, mostly English majors, Stephen Wolfram's What is ChatGPT Doing and Why Does It Work, with information about neural nets and the calculus behind it. And we fought through all of that. So they had left with a detailed understanding of how these systems work. And I used Perusal, like I said, I'm going to skip that. But if you haven't tried it out, it's a great platform where students can comment and respond to each other's comments as they're reading. Great for online classes to try to simulate discussion. It does check if the comments are pasted in, right? So you can have that access to check for how students are engaging. You can set questions that they respond to. I've even been using it in my in-person classes as an option for reading in class. And to test the bullshit hypothesis, I just asked them to write for 10 minutes on something that you're really passionate about, right? And then I asked them to have an LLM write on the same topic. Now, if we were in the depths of some genres of rap, it turns out that LLM could not write about that credibly. And that student knew that because that student knows about that topic, right? If we were writing about Taylor Swift's albums and ranking them, it turned out the LLM could do pretty well with that, right? So I collected all of their paragraphs on a spreadsheet that everyone could see. I collected all the LLM responses, and then I had students, okay, now tell me, did it bullshit or not? And tell me why, right? So we could see, and we're tracking how it's fabricating information, especially when there's nothing from the training data that it can really draw on. So that was the first kind of activity that we did in response to the readings that we had done. This is an example of a perusal comment. I've blanked out my student comments here of the neural nets and weights and things that we talked about with the Stephen Wolfram article. And just really complex, but like I said, we fought through it, and the students learned a lot from this. The feedback was about this unit that they couldn't imagine discussing AI in any other class without having this as a precursor because it was so thorough. So that was really good. The second movement of this unit was to evaluate. So we first had to brainstorm criteria as a class. How do you want to grade LLM output? And these are some of the things that they came up with that they wanted to grade LLM output on, that they brainstormed. And so we talked about which ones we want to focus on, how we're going to put those into a rubric, how are you going to make different rubric categories for scoring that, right? We all know about assessment design. I understand some of you are administrators, so you probably know way too much about assessment design, but we are teaching them about assessment design. And then we had to norm, right? Because part of assessment is making sure we're all reading the criteria similarly. So I gave them a shared prompt based on the first unit, like what would a student learn from the first unit? And we gave that to ChatGPT, and it plunked out a little essay, and we rated it in class, and we talked about who had rated things differently and why that was, and how we were going to keep our rating similar. And then I assigned each student a different LLM. I asked them to maintain a spreadsheet, and I gave them 3 prompts in the 3 genres that students can do for English majors here: a technical writing prompt, a creative writing prompt, and a literature prompt. And we took those prompts through different iterations. What happens if you add an audience? What happens if you add a purpose? What happens if you add exigence? There's different parts of rhetoric, right? And their homework during this section of the unit was to go home, give your LLM that prompt with the added thing, score it on the rubric, and keep track of your scores, right? And so we, at the end, could collect all of their information about which LLMs performed with which prompts, right, and different scores in an Excel sheet. They're learning how to use Excel. They're learning how to average formulas, right? And we shared all that together, and really learned about what LLMs did well and what they didn't in a hands-on way. So to synthesize this, I told them, you're going to write an LLM prompting guide. You get to choose the prompt. You get to choose the gold standard that you have written. So some students say, like, I have this really great poem that I love. Okay, your goal is to try to get the LLM to write something as good as that without giving it your work, right? You get to choose the rubric criteria that you're grading it on. You get to choose which, we talked about different prompt strategies and different prompt revisions. You get to choose which prompt revisions you're going to test. right? And you're going to collect all that data. You're going to give me your rubric that you chose. You can explain why those criteria were the best for your assignment. You're going to explain how you applied the scoring decisions. And those of you who are involved in assessment in your departments are having flashbacks, right, to the end of semester. You have results as a different section. You're going to give me your evidence, right, the spreadsheet with all the different scores you collected with the different prompt iterations. You're going to explain, what happened with those results, and then guess, why do you think the LLM did these things well, but not these other things? Why do you think this prompt changed the score, but not these other things? And then the final part was a guide, right? First, a preamble to hook in what happened in those first 2 weeks of class. How do LLMs work? And why do you think that's important for people to know before they start reading your guide? And then a manual, right? What are the guidelines that you would suggest someone do if they wanted to prompt an LLM, the one that you got assigned, to do the task that you asked it to do? And I got fabulous, like 30-page documents with all of this information, right? And students came away with an understanding of, this is what I can trust LLMs to do because I know how they work. They're not actually telling the truth. They're not actually looking things up, right? They're just predicting. They had that, right? But if I wanted it to help me with structure, I wanted to try these things. Was it successful or not, right? This is how I'd have to prompt. And I think those are the skills, like giving them the ethics and the understanding, and then letting them evaluate and try out, right? That's where we are with these AI systems right now, is can you evaluate output, think about how you're going to prompt to do better, and realize what you as a human being really have to check and really have to tune into, right, to be able to use these responsibly. So that's why I think that this unit really empowered students to go out of that class feeling like I can now engage with these tools in a way that's meaningful and in a way that is responsible. And that is my quick spiel about this unit that I created. Any questions on that one, Stephanie?
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay, I will wait. They teach you in teacher training school not to answer your own questions. I tell my students that all the time. Yeah. If there are no questions, then I was asked last time I gave a talk on this one in particular, how would I scale this? And so if I was going to do a short unit, right, I can't give up, students would, or teachers would say, professors would say, I can't give up 4 weeks of my class to talk about AI. How would I scale this? So I would say I would send them home with a reading about how AI works. And I would spend day 1 just discussing that, going through that with students, right? And then with the homework of rating different prompts. You can come back, and that could be like you're doing code in your computer science class, right? You're doing lab reports in your biology class, whatever it is that your field is. And try these 3 different prompting strategies, rate them, what you think was most successful, bring that back to class. Day 2, have everyone share their rating trends with the homework of reflecting what worked or what didn't work. Very short unit. Or you could do this concurrently, right? Send them home with a short video for homework. And on day 1, you spend 10 minutes on that discussion with the homework of rating some attempts at course homework, right? Have some questions from the previous unit or the previous test and ask AI to do it, and record what you're doing in an online shared spreadsheet. And as you continue through the course, right, you could discuss what are the trends that are happening as we are doing this, and again, have them have a reflection piece. So I think you don't have to do the full-blown 4-week unit, although it was a lot of fun, but I think any kind of engagement that you can do with AI in your classes is ultimately going to be beneficial to students, and helping them understand and use AI appropriately. Hooray. Is there an ending slide, Stephanie, that I should stop sharing so that you can show?
Yes, but actually we have something in the chat. It says from Elizabeth, I think it's a powerful exercise for students to ask ChatGPT about a topic they know a lot about. then they can see firsthand the errors. We typically ask ChatGPT about subjects we don't know, so we end up with incorrect information and we don't even know it.
Yep. The bullshit exercise was very revelatory. Even things that you would think it knows, like the difference between major and minor scales or different like musical modes, right? You would think came up with a lot of errors. And so, you know, we had a student who has that knowledge and was able to spot that right away. And so, yeah, I think that's what's interesting for them.
Okay. All right. Yes. So
I can stop sharing. Hold on.
I do have a question.
Oh.
From Bill. Any
Yes.
must-read essays to read other than the two mentioned?
Must-read essays. I think if I had to recommend one, I would really go with the Wolfram if you have any kind of technical expertise. And I don't. Like, I last took calculus in high school. But absolutely, I think essential. I had one, I can dig it out, that I was going to assign it's a little bit more technical. It's see if I can dig it up in my notes. It's an e-book about from the slightly earlier era of AI. Don't mind me, I'm just digging out my old conference presentation handouts from Adobe Illustrator.
Well, while you look for it, maybe I'll have
Yet.
Ron share the end slide for your certificates for the.
Please do.
Yeah. Okay, so on your screen right now is your certificate for participation. Go ahead and screenshot it, do what you may, so that you have this for your records for participating in today's presentation. Julie did say, Naomi, thanks for an excellent and even inspiring presentation. You're a creative teacher, learned so much.
Thank you. I don't know. I might need Bill's email so that I can email this to him later. Is where I think we're going to be.
Bill just sent it to me, so I can send it to you, Naomi.
All right. Fabulous. And Bill, this is really uninteresting, but I also spend a lot of time on the ChatGPT subreddit. And that's where you find people having a lot of discussions about how they're using AI and where they think the faults are and different prompting strategies. And maybe not the most academic source, but definitely where there's a lot of use of AI and a lot of discussion about it.
All right, well, if there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. We want to thank everybody for participating, and thank you, Naomi, for such a great presentation. It was recorded, so I believe we will share the recording, and then Naomi, if you can share with us your PowerPoint and your Menti, we will also share those as well.
And I will put in the book recommendation for Bill.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you all.